What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today we are talking wildcard drafts. So it's game week 5 we're going into now. A lot of people have hit the button after last week. It was a bit of a crazy week. Obviously, players like Son and Kane looking really good now. People thinking about how they can fit them in their teams. Sometimes the easiest way is just a wildcard. I've not hit the button yet. I'm still considering it. I don't think I'm going to do it, but because I have been thinking about doing it, I've put together a few drafts because obviously I want to know what would I change my team into, is it worth it, etc. So I've got some drafts in the back of my head which I'm going to share with you today. There's actually 3 in total, 3-4-3, a 3-5-2 and a Harry Kane draft as well, because like I said, he is very popular at the moment. A lot of the core players for each of the teams are the same, but I think that's important, right? When you wildcard, you want to be sure about the players you're bringing in. And there are certain players in the team that I would be sure about. There's some placeholders as well, like 4.5 million midfielders, for example. But I'll talk through that as we go. If you enjoy this type of video, please do give it a like. Hit that subscribe button as well if you haven't already. Trying to hit that 125k mark by the end of the season. And otherwise, let's jump into the first draft. So the first draft we're looking at is a 3-4-3. And I'll disclaimer straight away, because I know someone will say it in the comments. There have already been people that have skipped past this bit. They're not listening. They're going to go and tell me in the comments, I can't afford this team. I don't have the same players, right? I fully get that. I've had James Rodriguez since the start. I've had Calvert-Lewin since the start. If you haven't and you want to try and build this team, it might be a little bit more difficult, right? But there are players that I would want in the team, so I've kept them from my draft. There's no point in me going to create a new team, like a brand new account, because that will only have 100 million. Some people have had price rises and stuff, which means they've got more money to spend. This isn't for you to copy anyway, right? So if you need to make a few changes here or there, like drop Trent Alexander-Arnold to Robertson, whatever it might be, that's the kind of things to look at, right? I know not everyone can afford this squad. Exactly the same as people that have hit wildcard already. They probably got Ben Chilwell in at 5.5. They didn't wait until he got to 5.6 before putting him in. So these are the team I've come up with right now. So let's go through the players that are pretty much going to feature in most drafts, or at least most drafts that I would do. So Antonio up front, right? So I know a lot of people will look at the fixtures and say, not worth getting in. And to be honest, I wouldn't heavily argue with you that I still think his stats are good. I think he scored twice in the first 4 games, which there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's more than Che Adams has scored for nearly the same price at this point. So there was a 0.5 million difference to start. There's still a 0.5 million difference. And he is going to probably struggle to get too many goals over the next 3. But from game week 8, we know great fixtures. And the one reason I would just put him in now, you're only 4 weeks in. You've already hit your wildcard button. You don't really have a big get out now. You know, there's no get out of jail free card now if you've used your wildcard. So you don't want to be pre-booking too many transfers in. Think about the wildcards we've had so far. Game week 2, everyone went for Man United players. And then this week just gone, you know, it's like Man City, and then they've blanked twice in a row. At least De Bruyne's blanked twice in a row. There's players like that. And now people are wildcarding, they're going to put Son and Kane in. Who knows if they'll blank or not the next game. So you don't want to put too many pre-booked transfers in, because lots can change quickly, as we've already seen this season. So I really like Antonio for his price. I would hope he wouldn't drop too much more. And from game week 8, if he's still fit, he's definitely going to be in a lot of teams. He's going to be a huge bandwagon, and I'll be looking to get him in as well. Calvert-Lewin, there's not really too much to talk about there. We know how good he's been. It's Liverpool at home next, which is not ideal, but you're going to want better. You're going to want the better fixtures after that anyway. You're going to want him in your team. And then Morpé's the one I've chosen. So I've actually gone very cheap up front, so that I can afford Salah, Son and Sterling, and have James Rodriguez, and still have a Liverpool defender, and have Ben Chilwell as well. You could make sacrifices, right? Trent down to Robertson, Chilwell to a 4.5. You don't have Son, maybe you don't have Sterling, whoever it might be. Rodriguez can be down to Grealish. If you just do those 3 moves, so Trent Alexander-Arnold to Robertson's 0.5, Chilwell down to a 4.5 is another 1.1. That's 1.6 million. I can do maths in my head. Even if you went James Rodriguez down to Grealish, that's another 0.5 to add on top. You could spend that elsewhere and go for a more expensive striker. But again, talking about bandwagons, think how many people wildcarded last week to get Danny Ings in against West Brom. He doesn't score. Now he's got Chelsea away and Everton at home. Does he look as must-have now as he did last week? Probably not. Jimenez probably got better fixtures than Danny Ings. But is he now someone everyone wants after they kind of looked a bit toothless against Fulham? And that's supposed to be one of the easiest fixtures in the league this year. And they looked pretty average, right? So I don't think This is probably, I think, what I'm going to move towards with my actual team eventually, is going for 3 cheapies up front and putting more money in midfield. So Morpé's stats are pretty good. So last year his XGI was like 0.41 per 90 minutes. Right now it's about 0.5. So that's not including penalties, by the way. That's non-penalty statistics, which is pretty good. And let's not forget, he scored quite a few goals already. They've played Chelsea, they've played Everton, and they've played Man United. So I think he could be a decent pick. I think Salah picks himself. I don't see why you would go without him. If you look at who you're going to captain over the next kind of 6 or 7 weeks, Salah could or should be top of the list in a lot of game weeks. I feel like people are writing him off again, which I find so weird. He's already got 6 returns in 4. And yes, there's players that have bettered that. I think Son's bettered that, Kane's bettered that. But I think the thing with Salah is you'd expect him to continue. Son and Kane will get points, but nowhere near as many as they've got in the last few weeks. You'd imagine maybe this is going to be Spurs' season. I mean, Reguilon looks good, Højbjerg looks good, they got Bale to come in. They're going to be a strong team this year, but there's no way I'd want to be going out. Like, Mo Salah's done nothing in the first 4 games where I think, right, I have to take him out of my team. So he's in. James Rodriguez, I think, has looked brilliant. The only thing I'll say on him is he's playing late in the international break for Colombia, and he's not going to have much time between when he flies back to the kickoff on Saturday. So there is a chance he doesn't start in game week 5. But obviously, as long as he's fit, he's going to keep starting after that. And I've got Sterling in here. It could be De Bruyne, right? I'm not saying De Bruyne is now a bad option, but I've said it all along. If you take penalties out of the equation, Sterling's the better option. You can't just discard penalties. So if you think Man City are going to get enough, De Bruyne is still a really good option, especially if you think he keeps them when Aguero gets back. But I don't think there's too much between them. I know if I was going to captain one week to week, if I thought, I can't necessarily rely on penalties this week, I'd probably side with Sterling, which is why I've put him in here. But again, I wouldn't strongly argue against De Bruyne. And quickly on Son, yes, he's not going to keep up the amount of returns he's got, but his next 4 fixtures are incredible. You can overthink it and say, look, West Ham have conceded no big chances. They're going to defend deeper. There's going to be less space. But ultimately, I just think Son looks so good over the next 4. There's no reason to not go without him. Looking at the back, so I've gone for Steer Martinez. I mean, there is a train of thought now that maybe you shouldn't go for Martinez go for Steer with Martinez, because that blocks an Aston Villa slot. There's people talking about going Martinez, Grealish and Watkins, and maybe you do want to leave that door open, in which case you just go for a different 4 million goalkeeper. Whether Martinez is the best option in goal, I don't know. I think it's between him and Meslier. The reason, I basically think Aston Villa's defence is looking quite good, and I think Leeds' defence has it's good potential, I would say, for the price they are. I mean, let's not forget they're only 4.5 million, right? But for me, if it's Meslier versus an Aston Villa defender, or Martinez, the Aston Villa goalkeeper, versus a Leeds defender, I'm definitely going the Leeds defender route. I think they're more attacking. There's actually only one 4.5 million Villa defender now. Konsa's gone up in price. Mings was 5 million to start, and Cash is 5 million as well. And Target's the 4.5. He's created 0 chances so far this season. Matt Cash has created 4 on the other side, for example. Now, it doesn't mean that's going to continue for the whole season, but it's not a good look to start the season. So I would definitely go Martinez and Ayling. I think Chilwell, I've said all along in pre-season, I think Chelsea will come good for clean sheets. So I've put him in, but he could be a 5 million, he could be a 4.5. Leeds and Brighton rotate quite well. So if you wanted to go Lamptey and Ayling, that's another option. You put more money elsewhere if you want to. And I've still gone for Mitchell. Look, he's going to probably lose his place soon, but I don't think having a 4 million enabler in there is that bad. And Wolves defence, not seen enough that would put me off going for one of them as well. So that's the 3-4-3. I'll look at the 3-5-2 as well. As you'll see now, there's not a huge amount of changes. So this is the 3-5-2. There's not a huge amount of changes, right? And there is a little bit of money left in the bank. I couldn't quite stretch up to Pulisic, but there are ways to do it. So basically, the only real changes, as you'll see, is Trent's gone down to Robertson. I think there's actually a conversation to be had where at the moment Robertson does look better. When you watch the games, he's getting way further forward than Trent. That doesn't necessarily make a difference because we know Trent kind of is creative from deep. His crossing is exceptional, but it's so much more exciting seeing Robertson in the box than seeing Trent not in the box, right? And he does get in and around. And obviously, like I said, his passing, his creativity is kind of almost second to none when it comes to fullbacks. But right now, if I had to sacrifice for 0.5 million extra, I'd maybe make that Trent to Robertson move. Otherwise, instead of more pay and a 4.5 million midfielder, I should have said in the last one, by the way, the 4.5 million midfielder can be whoever you want. But I don't think Bissouma's a bad option. I don't think there's necessarily a guarantee that Burke keeps starting games either for Sheffield United, especially with Brewster in there now. So Grealish and Brewster come in. Now, Grealish is a little bit of a knee-jerk, but I have got him in my fan team squad, which I mentioned on a video yesterday. So it's not like I'm completely against owning him. He's just a bit cheaper there. But Villa are looking pretty good, and that's going to be a massive confidence booster. And maybe he's the way to get into a 3-5-2 midfield. I think Grealish versus Maupay is probably quite close. But obviously with Maupay and the 4.5 million defender or midfielder, you have a little bit more money to spend. Obviously Brewster is the best enabler when it comes to 4.5 million forwards. He's the only one that's likely to get you a start. And if he doesn't start, I'd be amazed given the amount of money they paid for him. And I don't think you're going to be in a situation where you block yourself from wanting 3 Sheffield United players, right? I barely even want 1 defender at the moment, let alone 2. So ultimately a very similar setup. You could save a little bit more money if you downgraded Chilwell, for example, and then I think there would be enough money to go actually all the way up to like a Pulisic, depending on how else your finances look. I put together this draft basically on Twitter, but Chilwell wasn't 5.6 million, and I think I had an extra 0.1 million sell value on De Bruyne, who's now gone down in price, so I don't have that anymore. And then I could have actually afforded Pulisic. So there is a bit of money in the bank for this. You could go for Barnes as well. Greenwood if you really wanted him, if you wanted to spend like 7.5 million. But I do like the idea, and I do think there's a couple of things going forward which I'm not 100% sure about. This is for my actual team, not a wildcard team. Where either, I think if I stick for 3-4-3, I think 3 cheap forwards, like 6.5 or below. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin's a little bit more, but he's not up to the price of Ings and Jimenez, at least not yet. Or we're going to start moving into a 3-5-2. Because suddenly, like at the start of the season, I was like, there's not many 7 to 7.5 million midfielders. Now it feels like there's quite a lot. I still think Harvey Barnes is good. Grealish looks good. James Rodriguez looks good. Obviously, he's gone up a bit in price as well. Pulisic's back now. If he's fit and ready to go and ready to play kind of 70 to 80 to 90 minutes every week, he's a great option at 8.3 million as well. So I think moving to a cheap front line or a 3-5-2 is probably the way forward. So yeah, not too many changes in this team. I still love it though, especially if you think Grealish looks good. He could be on penalties, although it could also be Barkley as well. So this is the Harry Kane draft I put together because I know a lot of people are probably looking at putting him in their teams. For me, I still don't know if I want to pay that 10.6 million, but if you're going to double up on Spurs players, this is the time to do it with their great 4 fixtures that are coming up. And when Gareth Bale gets into the squad, does that make these two better? I don't know, because Gareth Bale, at least he used to be quite a greedy player. A bit like Son, to be honest. They get in front of goal, they're shooting. So maybe that will take away some chances from these two. But I don't think you can look at it and think, I've got Kane and Son, putting Gareth Bale into their team makes their team worse, right? I just don't think that's really an argument you can make. Maybe it will turn out like that. But it's probably unlikely. So this is the team with Harry Kane. It's still the 3-4-3. So what I've had to do is put Lamptey in instead of Ben Chilwell. Like I said earlier, Lamptey and Ayling do rotate quite nicely, at least for the next few weeks. So that's a good option as well. I know Lamptey's got a yellow flag, but I'm sure he'll probably be fine by the time the international break comes around. And I wouldn't have too many issues playing a Leeds defender most weeks anyway. I do think they're going to do pretty well for that price. And Pulisic is in here instead of my Man City midfielder, whether that's Sterling or De Bruyne, because I cannot find a good way to get Kane in and still have the Sterling or De Bruyne in there as well, alongside James Rodriguez, Salah on Son. You could sacrifice Salah and go Man City. I don't personally think that's a good idea. So I've got Pulisic in there. Now, for his price, yeah, he could heavily outscore, or be incredible good value for that. If you look at it, I suppose Pulisic and Kane is 18.9 million. So if you went for De Bruyne or Sterling, then you obviously would have that kind of 6.5 million player up front instead, like I spoke about before, with more pace. So it's not a huge change, but I've also had to put Lamptey in as well. Still got Trent Alexander-Arnold. You could play around with the money a little bit, right? You could put a 5 million defender in and have Robertson instead of Trent. You could have Grealish instead of Pulisic. There's ways to get money out of this team, but I have not found a good way to get Sterling in there, right? Even if I dropped Alexander-Arnold down to 4.5, which could be done, that would put 11.3 million on Pulisic. So I still have to find a couple of extra 0.1 millions to get Sterling in. And it's a big sacrifice. I don't think I'd want a wild card and go with we can talk about Liverpool defenders, whether we go without them because of Adrian. I still think I would want one. You're going to want them at some point. I don't think it's worth worrying about using transfers to get them in and out at this stage of the season. So going without one from the start, that would be 3 4.5s, 1 4, and just a 5 million defender. I think that's too risky because they might not get you points, because they probably will still get a decent amount of points, and they'll actually spend more up front. But I just think down the line you're going to have to use transfers on that, and it's just probably not worth it. But if you really want a Man City midfielder, that's probably the way to do it. but I personally would not be happy making that sacrifice. So let me know in the comments below, Harry Kane, are you putting him in your wildcard draft, and who is being sacrificed? So that's it for this one. Leave me a comment below. Let me know how your wildcard teams are coming along. What are your key dilemmas you're having at the moment? Obviously, you've still got over a week to tinker with them, which is a good or a bad thing depending on your viewpoint. But if you have enjoyed the video, please do give it a like and hit that subscribe button as well if you're new around here. And big shout out to the patrons as well. If you want to check me out on Patreon, support the channel a little bit more, as well as getting extra perks, extra benefits as well, there is a link below, patreon.com/letstalkfpl. There's Slack access, there's team reveals, there's WhatsApp access, there's extra content, Q&As, all that kind of thing. So if you want to check it out, click that link in the description below. Just a quick shout out to everyone that's signed up here. So anyone that signs up basically gets their name on the wall as well. So thanks to everyone that's already signed up. And since the last video, we've had a couple of new joiners as well. So we're well over 150 members at this point. So Dan M, Serdan R, and Big Bamba FPL, thanks very much for signing up since the last video. So I'll leave that one there. Thanks much for watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'll be back tomorrow with another video. A few people have asked me if I'm going to do a rate my team kind of wildcard style video, and I probably will, but it might be next week rather than this week. But I'll see about that. If you want to find out when that's happening, follow me on Twitter. Again, links in the description below. Otherwise, I'll catch you again for another video. Cheers all.